Joining us on the phone at the moment, a person I haven't spoken to for years. Good morning, Pauline Hanson. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Good morning.
Pauline, got a few questions I want to shoot at you. First one is these despicable ex-nurses. What's your thought?
I'm absolutely disgusted. I was really quite upset when I heard about it. And I feel for the Jewish community because they're the ones that have been targeted over this. And I blame the leaders of this nation. I blame Albanese. I blame the premiers of every state. And I blame the university chancellors, vice chancellors. And I'll tell you why. They never did the leadership that was required to stop these protest rallies that were happening in our streets. A lot of those protests were hate-filled. They were unnecessary, and we should have stopped it. Especially in Sydney and other areas in Melbourne, where people going about their business because they were Jewish were denied the right, and they said, move on because you're going to cause violence or trouble here. Yet they did nothing about the Palestinian protesters on the streets. Albanese was slack. He had no backbone to actually come out and rein them in and set a standard in this country. Now, I've been warning people about fundamentalist extremists that we have allowed in the country. And my immigration policy now, I'm tough on it. Don't bring people in from these countries that are not compatible with our culture, our way of life, our laws, and do not accept the Western way of life and live by the extremist ideology.
Well, I will be honest, these two have both issued comments that they were feeling emotional. One of them said it was a joke, and Nadia's lawyer said that he was very emotional and he was sincerely sorry. Is that enough?
No, it's not. I don't accept it. I'm sorry. Everyone can make these remarks in hindsight. And
I agree.
He knows the backlash from the public. I don't accept it. As far as I'm concerned, he got his citizenship 4 years ago. He was a refugee from Afghanistan. Now, I've been to Afghanistan before the war ended there, and the problems in that country. Fair enough. He was given a clean start, a new start in this country, and he spat in our face as far as I'm concerned. It's not a joke to me. No one with any common sense would say this unless it's truly what they believe. It's not a joke to me. It was said, it was meant, and I wouldn't go myself personally, in my views and what I've said over the years. Do you think I'd go anywhere near the Bankstown Hospital? People, when they get sick and go to hospital, they expect to get the best care possible. And no one will want to go near that hospital now because they feel, who else feels this way or thinks this way? And you know what? The New South Wales Health Department is going through the whole hospital to see if anyone else thinks that way. Look at the area. Look at the suburbs.
We had a caller this morning who said, what about the doctors? And I hope that it hasn't spread to the doctors.
Well, I'll tell you something. A woman rang up my office yesterday and she said, I went to a skin clinic to be tested for, skin cancer. And she said, I was wearing the cross. She said, I'm Christian. Mm-hmm. And she said, it was a Muslim doctor who refused to treat me.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. I've asked her to send me the information, the details of this. But she was so upset by it, she rang my office to ask me, what I thought about it. So
wow.
I'm going to get the details. So, yes.
That has flummoxed me. What about the Hippocratic Oath? It means nothing.
Well, I'm telling you, we've seen what's happened in England, Netherlands, these other countries around the world that are Muslim-dominated from these fundamentalists, and you cannot go in some of these cities. They will not allow you in it, around Birmingham. They won't allow you there. The police are not even allowed to go in unless you've got permission. You go down to Lakemba and some of these places. One of my staffers, she said, I walked in the shop down there years ago, and the fellow said, I went in to buy a loaf of bread, and the fellow asked her, he said, where's your husband? You shouldn't be in here without your husband.
Wow.
People have no idea what the hell's going on in this country. You've been kept...
in the dark is what you're trying to say?
Yeah. We've been treated like bloody mushrooms.
Yeah.
And this is what I kept warning people all the time about. The people they bring in, and the Prime Minister has made the biggest mistake of bringing them in from Gaza. These are people that 75% support Hamas. And these are the terrorist organisations. They will never, ever, ever give up in their fight to destroy Western culture. They hate us. They absolutely hate our way of life and Christianity.
You were just talking about the Prime Minister, Albanese.
Yep.
How do you feel, and what's your thoughts on the fact that they have now cut money for the smaller parties during elections?
Yeah, it's a snatch and grab, have no doubt about it. I'll ask you, and I want the listeners to think about this. What piece of legislation has both major political parties ever agreed upon and had the whole crossbench and the Greens vote against them? What other piece of legislation?
Very few, if any.
None. That's right. We agree on national security or something like that, but what piece of legislation, but only the two of them have ever agreed on? And this is about electoral funding. It's about putting money into their own pockets. They brought this in purely to stop the Climate 200, the Teals and Clyde Palmer. But the cap is going to be $90 million that they can get. So the last election, the major political parties claimed about $75 million approximately between the two of them.
Yep.
After the 28 election, this won't be in for this election, but the one after it will. So they're going to collect about $140 million. So they put the per vote up from $2.91 up to $5 per primary vote. So everyone who gives the number one to the major political parties, they're going to get $5 out of the taxpayer.
How's this going to impact your party, for example?
You've got to put receipts in. Because of One Nation, get this one. So it used to be on per vote, and then now they changed it to stop One Nation from getting the money that we have to put in receipts, which I've got no problem with whatsoever. But we don't have the money like the majors to spend up to 90 million or 80 million in an election. See?
Yeah.
So they knew they're not competing with us, but they stopped it this time to stop the Climate 200 and Clyde Palmer that put 117 million into the last election. So you see, everything's designed to stop the minor parties and actually put more money into their pockets. And as I said to them, how are you going to stop the unions, third parties donating to the Labor Party, which backdoor, they put a lot of money into it? We don't get the corporate donations. I just rely on membership or, sausage sizzle or having a dinner or something like that. We don't get the big monies like major political parties do. So they've actually put the per seat, right? You can spend up to $800,000 per seat in election campaigning. How can I compete with that?
Yeah.
I can't. And
it's
then
very hard.
They get their money and they claim, that's right. So
Pauline,
it's very harder for us.
I got to say, you've made a lot of sense this morning, and I'll be honest, I don't agree with everything you say. And you know that you and I have had some interesting chats over the years, but a lot of what you're saying now makes true, honest sense. I would love to get you back on on a semi-irregular basis and say thank you very much for your time this morning.
Well, look, I'd love to do that because there's a lot happening that you won't be told by your local members there. They'll keep you in the dark like a bunch of bloody mushrooms.
Well, from one mushroom to another. Pauline, thank you very much.
Lovely. Take care. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Well, she hits it right on the nose all the time, doesn't she?